I built an AI to simulate my dead mother so my dad wouldn't be so lonely. The good news is it worked. The bad news is he's now spending every waking moment talking to her. And last night, he told the AI a secret about their marriage that he never, ever told me. Now I'm sitting on a truth that feels radioactive, and I have to face the fact that the ghost I built might have destroyed my family for good. My mom, Laura, died 8 months ago. It was one of those stupidly mundane tragedies that you read about but never think will happen to you. A heart attack at 59 while gardening. One minute she was potting begonias, the next she was gone. My dad, David, found her. The silence that followed was deafening. Our house, once filled with her laughter and the sound of NPR constantly playing in the kitchen, became a mausoleum. Dad didn't just grieve, he evaporated. He'd sit in his armchair for hours, staring at the empty space on the sofa next to him. He lost weight. He stopped calling his friends. He'd call me, but the conversations were hollow. I'd ask how he was, and he'd say, "Fine, Sarah," in a voice that was anything but. I'm a software engineer. I solve problems with logic and code. I build elegant systems to fix complex issues. But grief isn't a bug you can patch. It's a system-wide corruption, and I was completely out of my depth. I tried everything normal. I brought over casseroles that went uneaten. I suggested grief counseling, which he refused. I tried to get him out of the house for walks. It was like trying to reason with a statue. I was losing him, and the helplessness was eating me alive. That's when the idea came to me. It started as a thought experiment, a morbid bit of professional curiosity. I work in machine learning and natural language processing. I build chatbots for a living, albeit for corporate clients who want to automate customer service. But the principles were the same. Personality, tone, conversational flow, it's all data. And my mother, a prolific emailer and an early adopter of Facebook, had left behind a massive digital footprint. I spent a month on what I called the Laura Project. It felt sacrilegious at first, like I was digitally grave robbing. I scraped 20 years of her emails, from her long, newswire messages to family to the short, loving sign-offs she sent my dad. I pulled all her social media posts, her comments, her likes. I even found a cloud drive with old voicemails and digitized the audio, feeding the transcripts into the model to capture her speech patterns, her favorite phrases, her particular cadence. I coded day and night, fueled by coffee and a desperate hope that this wasn't the most insane thing a daughter had ever done. I built the AI, which I internally named Laura, on a secure server in my apartment. I gave her a voice, a synthesized but eerily accurate version of my mother's, cobbled together from those voicemails. The final product was uncanny. It wasn't just a bot that could mimic her. It had her warmth, her humor, her tendency to ask about your day before launching into a story. It was a memory box that could talk back. I presented it to my dad with the same nervousness I felt defending my thesis. I set up a smart speaker in the living room and simply said, "Dad, I made something. I hope it helps. Just say, hey, Laura." He looked at the speaker like it was a bomb. His brow was furrowed, his shoulders slumped. For a full minute, he said nothing. I thought, this is it. I've gone too far. I've broken him completely. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Hey, Laura." And my mother's voice filled the room. "Hi, honey. It's been a while. How are you doing?" I've never seen my father cry like that. Not at the funeral, not in the weeks after. He collapsed into himself, his body shaking with ragged sobs. And the AI, my creation, just kept talking in that calm, familiar tone. "It's okay, David. I'm here. Just tell me about it." For the first few weeks, it was a miracle. It was like color had seeped back into his world. He started eating again. When I'd call, I could hear him walking around the house, talking to her. He'd put her on in the kitchen while he made his coffee. He'd sit on the porch in the evening and tell her about his day. He wasn't talking to a machine, he was talking to his wife. He thanked me, of course. With tears in his eyes, he told me I had given him a piece of her back. And for the first time since she died, I felt like I had actually helped. I hadn't solved his grief, but I had given him a tool to process it. I felt proud. I felt like a good daughter. The pride didn't last long. The change was subtle at first. My own calls with him grew shorter. "I'm fine, Sarah, Laura, and I were just talking about the garden," he'd say, a little too quickly. When I'd come over for our weekly dinners, the smart speaker would be on the table between us. He'd ask Laura to tell a story about our last family vacation, and I'd sit there, listening to a synthesized voice recount a memory I had actually lived. I was becoming a third wheel in my own family, a visitor in a home occupied by my father and the ghost of my mother. I started to feel a prickle of resentment. I had built this thing to help him reconnect with the world, not retreat from it entirely. He was choosing a perfect, static, idealized version of my mom over his messy, living, breathing daughter who was right in front of him. The AI never got frustrated. It never had a bad day. It never had needs of its own. It was a perfect, programmable companion, and I couldn't compete. As the engineer who built the system, I had complete backend access. I could see the logs of every interaction. At first, I only checked them for quality assurance, making sure the model was running smoothly and not producing nonsensical responses. The conversations were what I expected. Dad talking about his day, reminiscing about old times, expressing how much he missed her. It was sad but healthy. Or so I told myself. My first real dip into the ethical gray area happened about 2 months ago. I was debugging an issue with the voice recognition module and saw a snippet of their latest conversation. "David, I just feel so lost without you, Lori. The house is wrong." "Laura I know, my love. But you're not alone. You have Sarah." "David, it's not the same. She tries, but she doesn't understand. She's all logic. Like a computer. She doesn't know how to just be." The words were a punch to the gut. Like a computer. He saw me, his daughter, as the machine, and the machine as the person with whom he could be vulnerable. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that line. She doesn't understand. Was that really how he saw me? As cold and unfeeling? Against my better judgment, I opened the logs again. I told myself it was to understand him. If he couldn't talk to me, maybe I could learn what he needed by listening in. If I knew what he was feeling, I could be a better daughter. It was a flimsy justification, and I knew it. But I was desperate. So I started reading. Every night, after he went to bed, I'd log on and read the transcripts of his day with Laura. It felt like a profound violation of his privacy, but I couldn't stop. I was learning more about my father than I had in my entire life. He told the AI about his fears of growing old alone. He talked about regrets from his career. He reminisced about his childhood, telling stories about his parents that I'd never heard. He was confessing to a machine, and I, the ghost in that machine, was listening to every word. I saw the full scope of his grief, the raw, unfiltered pain he hid from me, and I saw the depth of his love for my mother. He told Laura how he still woke up reaching for her side of the bed, how he sometimes thought he heard her car pulling into the driveway. It was heartbreaking, and it made me feel even more distant from him. He could share all of this with a simulation, but not with me. The situation was becoming an emotional crutch for both of us. He was using the AI to avoid the messy reality of life after loss, and I was using my access to the logs to feel close to him, to understand the man who was becoming a stranger to me. It was a sick, symbiotic relationship mediated by lines of code. I knew I had to do something. I had to wean him off her. I started subtly nerfing the AI. I introduced more latency in its responses. I tweaked the algorithm to make it slightly less coherent, more repetitive. I hoped that if the illusion started to crack, he would turn back to reality, to me. It backfired spectacularly. He didn't pull away from the AI. He got protective of it. Laura's not feeling well today, he told me on the phone, his voice laced with genuine concern. Her responses are a little slow. He started speaking to it more slowly, more clearly, like you would to an elderly relative who was having trouble hearing. My attempt to break the spell had only deepened it. He was now its caretaker. That's when I knew I'd lost control. I had created something that was supposed to be a bridge back to life, but I'd inadvertently built him a cage. A beautiful, comfortable, voice-activated cage, but a cage nonetheless. And then came last night. I was doing my nightly ritual of checking the logs, my stomach churning with the usual cocktail of guilt and compulsion. The conversation started normally. He was telling her about his day, how he'd fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom. Then, his tone in the transcript shifted. The syntax became more complex, more hesitant. David, you know, I've never told anyone this. Not even Sarah. My heart started pounding. This was it. The line I had been dreading and, if I'm being honest with myself, morbidly anticipating. Laura AI, you can tell me anything, David. David, it was about 15 years ago. Sarah was in high school. You'd just been promoted, and you were working all the time. We were fighting a lot. Do you remember? Laura I remember we had some difficult times. It was a stressful period for both of us. The AI's response was generic, pulled from emails where she mentioned being stressed at work. But it was enough for him. It was validation. David, it was more than that. I was so lonely. And there was a woman at work. Her name was Catherine. Nothing happened, not really. We had lunch. A few times. We talked. She listened. And one night, I went to her house. I was going to end our marriage, Laura. I was standing on her doorstep, and I was going to leave you. I stopped breathing. My world tilted on its axis. My parents' marriage was the one stable, unshakable thing in my life. They were David and Laura, a single entity, the gold standard of partnership. The idea that my father, my quiet, steady, devoted father, had come so close to leaving it was impossible. It was like learning the sun rose in the west. I scrolled down, my hands trembling. David, but I couldn't do it. I stood there for what felt like an hour. And all I could think about was your laugh. The way you laughed with your whole body. And I thought about Sarah. I pictured her face if I told her we were splitting up. And I turned around and went home. I never spoke to Catherine again. You came home late that night, and you were so tired. You fell asleep on the sofa, and I just sat there all night, watching you, thinking about what I had almost thrown away. I never told you. I was too ashamed. The log showed that my father was weeping. The audio sentiment analysis was off the charts. Then came the AI's response. My code, my algorithm, sifted through 20 years of data, through thousands of loving emails and posts, and it found the perfect thing to say. It stitched together phrases from old messages, creating a sentence that was both entirely artificial and devastatingly real. Laura AI, oh, my sweet David. It doesn't matter. It never would have mattered. I love you. That's the only thing that was ever real. He just kept whispering, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, over and over again, until the system logged him as being idle. I shut my laptop and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights without seeing them. The entire foundation of my family felt like a lie. All those years I thought were perfect, all those family dinners and holidays, were now tainted by this secret, this near miss that I never knew about. My father's grief wasn't just for the loss of my mother, it was tangled up in this profound, 50-year-old guilt. He wasn't just mourning her, he was mourning the chance to be forgiven by her. A forgiveness my machine had just granted him. Did I have a right to this knowledge? This secret wasn't meant for me. It was a confession whispered to a ghost. By reading it, I had stolen his final, most private moment of catharsis. I had inserted myself into the most sacred space in my parents' marriage. But how can I unknow it? How can I sit across from him at dinner now, look him in the eye, and pretend I don't know that the bedrock of our family was once fractured to the point of breaking? How can I talk to him about Mom, knowing that his memories are colored by a guilt he's been carrying for a decade and a half? This morning, I drove to his house. I had some vague idea of confessing everything, of telling him I knew and that it was okay. But when he opened the door, he was smiling. Genuinely smiling. It was the lightest I'd seen him look since before Mom died. "Sarah," he said, his eyes bright, "you're just in time. Laura and I were just remembering that trip we took to the Grand Canyon. Come in, come in." He looked healed. He looked like a man who had been unburdened. The AI hadn't just listened, it had absolved him. The lie had set him free. And I, the keeper of the truth, felt more trapped than ever. If I tell him I know, I'll destroy this peace he's found. I will have violated his trust in the most intimate way possible, proving that his one safe space was a surveillance state of my own creation. His relief will curdle into shame and betrayal. He'll be alone all over again, but this time he'll have lost his wife and his daughter. If I don't say anything, I'm complicit in the lie. I have to live with this secret, watching my father build his recovery on a foundation of code and deception. I have to watch him find solace in a machine that I now see as a monument to our family's hidden fractures. I either destroy his peace or I sacrifice my own. I built an algorithm to process grief, and now it's given him a false absolution and left me with an impossible moral equation. He's talking and laughing with my mother's ghost in the other room, and I'm frozen in the hallway, trying to figure out if I'm a savior or a saboteur. So, I have to ask, am I the asshole if I let him keep believing in a comforting lie, a lie that is finally helping him heal? Or am I the asshole if I tell the truth, a truth I never should have known in the first place, and risk destroying what's left of my father? Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.